You're the keeper of my soul. You're the owner of my heart. I don't think a day will come we'll ever be apart. And I will always love you like no other, as long as you don't turn out like your mother. Honey, well, I guess since you're leaving, I'm not getting any this evening. Hey, I'm kidding.
So, are you guys ready for the sex talk? Are you ready? All right, this is session 5 of Winning at Work and Home, and the title is Improving Your Sex Life. To get us started, I thought it'd be kind of fun to hear from Pulitzer Prize-winning humorist Dave Barry. Here's what Dave says. He says, over the years, I've been harshly critical of the scientific community for wasting time researching things nobody really cares about, such as the universe. With all due respect to astronomers, we don't need to find any more stuff out there. We already have more stuff than we could ever use right here in our garages. We need the scientific community to focus on the topic that is of far greater importance, yet remains a baffling mystery to humanity, or at least to us as guys, and that is the topic of sex. Guys think about sex a lot. You know the painting of Washington crossing the Delaware, where the guys have facial expressions of grim resolve as they approach a battle that will determine their fates and the fate of the American Revolution? You know what those guys are really thinking? They're thinking, are there any women over there in New Jersey? Well, despite thousands of years of thinking virtually nonstop about sex, guys have made very little progress towards answering basic questions about sex, such as, how can you obtain more of it? How much talking is really required? And what is the role of jewelry? Well, guys, hopefully we can make some progress in the area of understanding sex today. First of all, we need to look at some of the challenges that revolve around men and women in sex. You know, there are major league differences between the sexes on sex. I hope you've already figured that out. For instance, how often we as men think about sex varies greatly with how often women think about sex. Research tells us that women on average think about sex once a day. Once a day. On the other hand, guys think about sex 33 times a day. Women think about shopping 33 times a day. Well, thinking about sex that much throughout the day puts a whole lot of pressure on us as men. And so what do you do with all those thoughts? And that's really the key question. Look on your outline. The key question is, how do you manage your sexuality? When you think about it and dwell on it that often, I think that's a fair question, because any guy knows, we all should know how powerful his sexuality is on the one hand, but also how potentially lethal it is on the other hand. So how do you manage your sexuality? That's a great question. We've all seen what happens if you don't manage it well, and if you unleash it indiscriminately, if you indulge those sexual thoughts without boundaries, and then your sexuality can become a WMD, a weapon of mass destruction. And we see evidence of that destruction around guys who had no boundaries and mismanaged their sex life. It unleashes betrayal on themselves and betrayal on those that love them the most. Betrayal on a girlfriend or a wife. It unleashes disrespect and embarrassment, a loss of honor and reputation, a loss of one's wife and family, a flood of pain and heartaches, sometimes the loss of a job or the spreading of a disease, or even the loss of his own life. Regularly, we hear about that kind of destruction in the life of a politician or an athlete, or the life of a businessman, even the life of a preacher. Mismanaged sexuality can blow up a career, and the life that you worked your whole life to establish, in one instance, it's gone. Mismanaged sexuality is a weapon of mass destruction. Now, on the other hand, when you manage it correctly, managed sexuality is a WMG. And I want to call that a wonderful masculine gift. That's really what it is, all right? Sex that is properly focused and properly directed is a gift from God, and it has no backside bitterness or guilt. It is a wonderful masculine gift. I want you to listen to this quote. "Oh, how beautiful and delightful you are, my love. Your breasts are like clusters, and I'll take hold of them, and your mouth tastes like the best wine." You know what that is? That's not a preview of some HBO special. That's from the Bible, the Song of Solomon. "Let her breast satisfy you at all times. Be absolutely drunk with her love." That's not Playboy 5:19, that's Proverbs 5:19. Some of you guys are thinking, man, I got to get me a Bible today. That's good stuff in there. You know, that's right. There's some great stuff in there. And that's what the Bible shouts. It shouts that sex is a wonderful masculine gift from God when it's managed responsibly. Now, before we get started, I need to be crystal clear on one thing, so everybody listen up. With regards to sex management, I need you to know up front that I firmly believe that sex is best managed within the boundaries of marriage. Now, I know that's countercultural, but you can look at our culture and you can see the messes it makes around sex. Now, in saying that, it presents a huge challenge for me as a communicator and for the single guys here today. But we're going to dive deeply into sexuality and sex, and so I've got to make a disclaimer right on the front end. For the single guys, everything I'm going to say is for your future reference. Anything I say, listen carefully, anything I say that is used outside the boundaries of marriage will become a destructive force. Let me be crystal clear on that. All right, now with that said, let's dive in, okay? And let's look at what every husband wishes his wife understood about him sexually. By the way, guys, I'm aware that a lot of women listen to our Quest sessions. Somehow they gain access to them, you know, and that's cool with me. I mean, they're interested in what we're learning. And so I know a lot of women are even listening to this session now, so let me just go ahead and go on record and say to them, listen up, ladies, this is really important stuff. And here are 5 things that you need to know, 5 things that every man wishes his wife knew about him regarding sex. First of all, my sex drive is powerful, it is persistent, and it is normal. All right, so let me talk to the ladies. Did you hear that, Diane? Did you hear that, Susan or Cheryl? Any of you guys want to give me a name right now? This is your chance. Y'all are cowards. But ladies, we want you to know that our sex drive is powerful, it is persistent, and it is normal. I want my wife to know that I am not weird, I am not a sex fanatic, I'm just a man. I am normal. Research has demonstrated that men are wired to regularly feel the need for sex. It's a strong impulse within us. That's how God created us. It was not a mistake. And in marriage, there's always this growing pressure for a sexual release. And once we get it, it's only a short time before we want it again. And that's the way sex operates. Researchers can tell us, at least for the average man, that he will need sex probably 2 to 3 times a week. Now, that's the average. Some of you less, some of you more, but that's the average. If a married man misses those moments, there's going to be this growing pressure that is God-given that will begin to build within him. And if he doesn't have the opportunity to express himself sexually, then that pressure will turn into feelings of frustration, and he'll begin to feel tense and uncomfortable and uneasy with his life and in relationship with his wife. That's how men are wired. Years ago, there's a TV miniseries called Shogun. I don't know if you guys remember this. Richard Chamberlain was the actor who played the lead role. He was a Dutch trader who was adopted into Japanese culture. And he was given a woman for to be his consort or his wife for a period of time. And so she joins him, and they're complete strangers. But she comes up to him one night after they've been together for a while, and she says, "Are you constricted?" And he says, "What?" And she says, "Do you need pillowing?" And what he discovered was that this woman understood a man. She understood that without regular sexual release, he would get constricted. Now, that's a good term. Now, some of you guys may want to find that series and watch it with your wife. And then afterwards, when the need arises, you can just kind of come up to her and say to your wife, you can say, summarize, seriously constricted. And you may be surprised. She might say, awesome. But you know, there really is wisdom there, okay? It's unfortunate for wives who don't understand that. And some of the wives who may be listening to this right now, you don't understand your man and how he's wired, and if you don't give attention to that, you're undermining your marriage. That's why Proverbs 14:1 says this. It says, the wise woman builds her house, but with her own hands the foolish one tears hers down. You see, a foolish woman is one who is ignorant or unwilling to recognize how men are wired. You know, for the last 4 sessions, I've been encouraging you to live with your wives in an understanding way, and then that's been my challenge to you. Well, the same thing is true for women, and if I was speaking to them, I would drive that point home. And so she can actually tear her house down with her very own hands if she doesn't understand how men are wired. Dr. Kevin Leman is a psychologist and a best-selling author, and he's been featured on shows like Oprah and Good Morning America. He's really a very wise counselor in this area of marriage and sexuality. He says this, he says, most women underestimate the male sexual appetite. As a counselor, I am now prepared to tell this to young women who are contemplating marriage. If you are not willing right now to make a commitment to have sex at least 2 or 3 times a week for the rest of your life with this man, then don't marry him. Now, guys, that's a strong statement. But it's coming out of a man who knows, after counseling couples for years and understanding the research, that is part of who a man is. Our sex drive is powerful, it is persistent, and it is normal. And we want women to know that. Secondly, write this down. Husbands want their wives to know this. Sex is to me what affection is to you. It's my number one need, and one empowers the meeting of the other. A husband's craving for sex is no more selfish than a wife's craving for affection. They are real, legitimate, healthy, God-given needs. And when they're met, it creates a healthy, happy couple. But when those needs are ignored, the primary needs of men and women, there is trouble. Research tells us that most affairs for wives start for one reason: a lack of affection from their husbands. But research also tells us that most affairs are started by men because of a lack of sex, good sex, from their wives. Now, the principle is this: sex is, for a man, what affection is for a woman. And happy is the couple who understands that and buys deeply into it. Now, I think a diagram will help us. Now, don't get nervous. We're talking sex, and I just mentioned diagram, okay? But it's not what you think. But here's the diagram. I believe it'll help us understand this better. When a man experiences sex with his wife, when he enjoys her physically, that's when he feels extremely close in the midst of it and afterwards. And that's where he feels close to his wife in the physical unity. Now, afterwards, it's much easier for him, having been satisfied, to now give her affection in the days that follow. And in the same way, when a wife receives affection from her husband, she feels very close to him. She feels warm and intimate. And because of that, now she finds it much easier to participate with him willingly in sex later on. You see how that works? You see how that cycle? Now, let's look at the flip side of that. What happens if a man withholds affection from a woman? What happens when he ignores her? He's too busy. He's too preoccupied. But he wants sex. Well, she may go through with it physically, but she withholds herself because she's not really ready for it. She's not had her needs meet. And the man doesn't fully enjoy his wife in sex. He may not understand why, but he feels that she's holding herself back on some level. And maybe sometimes she's even refusing to have sex with him. So now he feels deprived. Now it's much harder for him to give affection to her. Do you see how that works? Now look at the diagram. You know what I call that? It's the chicken and the egg diagram, right? Now the question is, this begs the question, which comes first? Which comes first? The husband giving affection or the wife giving sex? And that's a good question. And my answer would be, have a different application depending on the group I'm talking to, but this is a manhood journey. So here's my answer to you. You know what my answer is? It's the paradox principle. Die to live. Go back to session 1. If you want to live, if you want sex to come alive in your marriage, then you are always going to have to choose to die a little. And that will make this circle become not a circle of death, but a circle of life. Guys, I don't want to hear it anymore when somebody says, but my wife is not giving me what I need. All right, that is not your responsibility. You cannot control her, but you can control you. So you choose to die to live. You do your part regardless and see what can happen in this cycle. Now, the third thing that every husband wishes his wife understood is this. Sex for me is like this grand oasis in the midst of everyday life, okay? I think every guy will understand this. It's a place where I can escape and experience moments of just pure fun. Now, isn't that what sex is? Just moments of pure fun. It's a moment like in the old Beatles songs, all my troubles seem so far away, man. That's where I can just enjoy the wife of my youth. And that's what the Bible says. Proverbs 5:18 says, may your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Now, guys, do I have to draw a diagram so you know what fountain is? Okay. May your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. The Bible's pretty cool, isn't it? It's got a lot of practical stuff. Now, as life goes on, it starts to feel heavy. And a lot of guys want to go back and act like a kid again. And when they do, it looks strange, okay? You can't go back to, high school football or basketball. You can't go back to college or the fraternity. You can't go back to acting like a single guy now if you're married, when you could spontaneously just do anything on a whim. You can't go back there. But you can go back to the wife of your youth. You can go back to that original sexuality. And listen, here's the key. If you've been encouraging it all through those years, there is nothing more fun than having a romp with your wife under the sheets, or on top of the sheets, or in the shower, or under the dining room table, or on top of the washer when it's on the spin cycle. It's a moment where life is good, and all my worries for a moment seem so very far away, and I can have pure fun. That's what sex is for a man. A fourth thing husbands wish their wives understood, and that is this. Satisfying sex reassures me in my manhood. It reassures me in my manhood. At a primal level, it reassures a man that he can perform. See, men are performers. We're action figures, and we want to know that we're good at something. We're always measuring ourselves at work and at home by our performance. And sometimes we don't perform well, okay? Sometimes we get beat up during the week, and we lose a big sales contract. The boss is on your case, okay? You're not performing well there. Now you're behind in your bills. And on top of that, you went out to blow off some steam to play some golf, and you got drilled. And so now you come home, and your wife responds to you sexually. Suddenly, you feel good about yourself again. You feel re-energized. You don't feel like a loser. You feel like a man again. Because of the energy of that intimate moment, you're ready to tackle life again. And if women only knew the power that this injects into a man's life when it's rightfully done, I want my wife to know that. In those moments, even when life is tough on me, moments with her reassure me in my manhood. Finally, husbands wish that our wives knew this. Real sexual fulfillment for me is impossible unless I can sexually fulfill you. Now, there's no greater lie than the one that is sometimes perpetrated in small circles of women, that all men want in sex is to please themselves. That is simply not the truth. I believe for every husband deep down, his deepest masculine need in the bedroom is to please his wife sexually. And when he knows he's doing that, and when she tells him that he's doing that, sex goes way past the 15 seconds of personal ecstasy. when he feels that from her, that she is responding to him, there's this deep sense of masculine fulfillment. I can perform in a way that pleases her, and that makes me feel like a man at the deepest level. Now, those are 5 things that I wish every wife knew about every husband here. But what about our wives, okay? What do we need to know about them? I want us to turn our attention on them because that's really the focus in this series called Winning at Work and Home. Here's what I want you to know. There is a special aphrodisiac for our wives. It's called before play, or the feminine Viagra, okay? And here's the key principle behind it. Husbands need sex to feel close to their wives, but wives need daily closeness to feel like having sex with their husbands. Now, guys, you really need to wrap your head around that. That is a key principle. Wives need daily closeness to feel like having sex with their husbands. Here's what daily closeness looks like, okay? The kind that is sexually stimulating to a wife. I want to give you some everyday ways to keep your wife excited about having sex with you, okay? First of all, reassure her with words and displays of affection. Words and displays of affection. Remember, affection is her number one need, and she warms up when you warm up with things like conversational companionship and words of affirmation. So reassure her with words and displays of affection. Secondly, daily practice the romance of one small sacrifice. One little sacrifice. Now, it might be helping her with the dishes or putting the kids to bed at night. You could say to her, look, you just stay here, prop up your feet, watch TV, I'll put the kids to bed. It could be fixing something she's asked you to do, but you've been putting it off. But all those little things register deeply in the psyche of the feminine mind and heart. Number 3, give her regular, focused attention. Regular, focused attention. Now, you don't even have to go out on a date. You can do it tonight, okay? Go home, just turn the TV off for about an hour. And then turn to your wife and say 2 words. Let's talk. And when you do that, for her, sex begins, whether you know it or not. It's crazy, I know, okay? But it does. 4th, speak her love language often. Now, you should know what it is by now if you did the application project. You remember there are 5 love languages. Words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. And we like all those, but one of them is really our love language. My wife's love language is quality time. Now, I can give her the other 4, but if I miss that one, that main one, then her tank's going to be on empty. So you need to know what your wife's love language is and speak it to her often. Number 5, surprise her with a gift that is out of the ordinary. A note or flowers, a surprise getaway, something that she's not expecting, all right? Number 6, surprise her by initiating something that she likes to do. Find out what she likes to do, and you plan it, you initiate it. Robert Lewis, the man who developed the curriculum we're studying, played football in college with the Arkansas Razorbacks, and he ran into a buddy he played with not too long ago, and it was right before a big game. I think Razorbacks were playing Texas at the time, and so he asked his buddy, he said, "Are you going to the game?" You know, and to his surprise, his buddy said he wasn't. So Robert asked him why, and he said, "Well, I'm taking my wife to the symphony that night to hear some Italian guy that I've never heard of, but she loves." And Robert stepped back and he said, "Man, I'm really sorry." And the guy said, "Well, I'm not." He said, "You know, I know how much it means to her, and so I'm willing to let it go." Robert said he started to quiver, and he said, "You are a giant of a man." And you know what? He gets it. He is surprising his wife with something out of the ordinary and something she likes to do, and that registers deeply as affection in the life of a woman. Number 7, stay actively involved in loving your children. When a husband goes out of the way to do things with the kids, okay, take them out on special dates or get extra involved on a birthday. My little girl is turned, her 4th birthday is today. We had a party on Friday. It was a ballerina birthday party. Oh yeah, guys, lots of pink, lots of balloons, lots of little girls running around in tutus, okay? I was there. I helped plan it, And I tell you, you know what? It was fun, all right? I didn't just survive. I really enjoyed it. Today, we had cupcakes at her preschool, and my wife and I showed up with cupcakes for her and her friends because today is her actual birthday. And I just ran over for about 45 minutes. It's right down the road. Today was a busy day, okay? I was scrambling to get this talk finished. There's a lot going on. I was running late. But you know what? Those 45 minutes, man, they're worth gold. And I've learned that my wife loves it when I do something loving for our little girl. When I love the kids, I'm loving her at the deepest level. And when I love her at the deepest level, then she wants to love me at the deepest level too. That's how that works. Number 8, keep your relationship free of unresolved conflict. We talked about that last week. Unresolved conflict kills. It kills any sense of responsiveness sexually between a husband and a wife. Guys, if it's cool in your relationship, it's going to be frosty in the bedroom. You can count on it, okay? So here's what I want you to do, okay? The 8 things on your workbook later. The actions that you fill out in your outline later, I want you to look at them. I want you to burn this in your brain, okay? It's letter C on your outline. All of the above, all those things that we just covered, all those blanks you filled in, all the above is the beginning point of sex for every wife. When you give it, you'll get it. It's how a good marriage and a healthy sex life mesh together. Write this down, okay? If you want things to come alive at night, you've got to die a little during the day. That's how that works. You want things to come alive at night, you got to die a little during the day. Now, I want us to explore how we can help our wives enjoy sex with us, okay? I want to give you 3 perspectives to help you partner with your wife and encourage her in this very intimate area that's really most important to you. And the first one is primarily for the younger married men, okay? Here it is. Start with the perspective that my wife and I are not at the same place sexually, okay? There are 4 stages in sex. There is arousal, lovemaking, intercourse, and orgasm. Those are the 4 stages that we cycle through. But in each of those 4 stages, a woman is vastly different than a man. And one of the greatest mistakes men can make regarding their wives, especially young married men, is that they think that we're much the same in those 4 stages, and we're not. Here's what I want you to know. Even in a sexually liberated age like ours, many young wives are sexually inexperienced. Research tells us that many wives, even wives, this is astounding to me, even wives that come into marriage who have been sexually active, many of those women have never experienced true sexual arousal. Now, that may seem hard to believe, but researchers know better. Here's why. True sexual arousal for most women requires safety and security and a sense of deep trust and protection in a committed relationship that they think is going to endure. And there are single women having sex maybe because of cultural pressure, or maybe they don't think they can keep a guy unless they do. And while they're participating, the guy thinks everything is great. And the girl is participating, but she's not really in it. Her heart's not there. She's going through the motions, and the guy's clueless in many cases. And for young wives coming into marriage, when you first begin to sexually interact, you may think she's right where you are, arousal-wise. But the truth is, she is not. Research also shows that many young women entering marriage have never had an orgasm. And now, they know what it is in theory, but they've never experienced it personally. And so they enter marriage understanding it only as an idea. Orgasm to them is still unknown territory. On the honeymoon, the man assumes that sex for him and his bride is the same. They come back from the honeymoon, everybody asks, how was it? They both say great, but it was great for different reasons. He was thrilled because he got to do it. She was thrilled because she got through it. Now, she's legitimately thrilled, but not the same way a guy is, okay? She's on a different plane than where the man is. They are in vastly different places. And many husbands, write this down, many husbands enter marriage believing that his wife enjoys sex at the same level that he does. And that's just not true. He's getting an experience that he's somewhat familiar with, okay? Guys understand arousal. They can be there immediately. They understand lovemaking. They understand intercourse. They understand what an ejaculation is. It's familiar territory. And it's going to stay familiar with a guy all the way through those married years. But she is just beginning. She may not be fully aroused. She can make the movements in bed. She can have the sex, but without the arousal, she's just working her way through. And maybe there's no climax at all. For many women, they don't necessarily need that to enjoy lovemaking. Now, guys don't understand that. That's how different we are. But know this, after you are married, you need to understand that you are not at the same place. And you need to know, as a husband, that you are the person who helps your wife get where God wants her to be sexually. You help her get there. You hold her hand, so to speak. Your loyalty, your sensitivity, your patience, your protection, your attentiveness, your willingness to understand, and your willingness to let it take time is what will get you both there. And here's what will happen. Over time, she will blossom sexually. And in time, your sexual intensity as a man that started high and remained high for a number of years, guys, I'm sad to say, it's going to taper off and even decline. That's why Viagra is a billion-dollar industry. But on the other hand, your wife's sexual intensity may have started lower, some lower than others, but given the sensitivity and understanding of her husband, not forcing anything, and being patient and attentive, over time, her sexuality, her sexual intensity will rise. And at some point, her sexual intensity will go above the man's in many cases. Now, research tells us that in 30 to 40% of the American homes where couples have been married for 15 years or more, the wife enjoys sex more than the husband. But that's because that she's had attention given to her over time, and she grows into a fully sexually experienced woman. For the younger guys who are married, guys, listen up. For the younger guys who are married or about to be married, with this information I've given you, you're going to owe me big time in about 15 years, all right? Now, here's the second perspective that we all need to know as men, okay? Keep the perspective that arousal is the key to your wife's sexual experience with you. Arousal is the key. Remember the 4 stages: arousal, lovemaking, intercourse, orgasm. Now, for the woman, the most important one, the key to her sexual experience is arousal. Without arousal, a husband may get his wife's body, but she's not going to be there with you. Physically she is, but you won't have her heart and her soul. Now, if your number one need is to please her sexually, and I believe it is, if you don't have that, you're going to sense that. You will climax at the end, but you're going to feel a little unfulfilled because you can sense that she's not really with you. You know what that's going to do? Rather than please you, that's going to hurt. Arousal is the key to everything for a woman. But a woman's arousal is much more complex than a man. Now, to help us, I want to just dumb it down, okay? Sex for dummies. Here we go. Here's an easy formula for us to remember. Arousal for a man takes about 10 seconds. Now, not really, okay? I'm actually kidding, but it's close to that. It's close to that, okay? Men are like microwaves. Here we go, guys, okay? This is us right here, baby. Your wife steps out of the shower, all of a sudden, you're ready to go. She bends over the dinner table, a low-cut blouse, here you go. You're ready to go. Ding, you're done. We're like microwaves. But it doesn't work this way with a woman. She's totally different. Arousal for her requires about 10 points. Oh, yeah, you remember the point system, okay? Remember the scoring system. Arousal for her is that you took out the trash and you got 1 point. You gave her a hug before you went to work. You got another point. You drove the carpool. You got what? 1 point. Somewhere along the way, you're going to build up enough points into her complex relational grid system. When you hit 10 points, boom, she's ready, okay? But picture it like this, all right? We're microwaves. This is her. She's a crock pot. That's the way it works. And arousal is the key. To get aroused, she's got to have a man who understands how to build into her life on a daily basis and be patient. Now, here's the last perspective, okay? Establish a track record of being safe in bed. The more you provide safety in bed, the more your wife can relax and abandon herself to you, and that's important. Now, here are 5 suggestions for establishing safety. Number 1, never force anything. Never force anything. You can be creative in bed, that's good, but forced creativity will hurt. And sometimes it'll take months, some cases even years, to recover from forced creativity. Trying to force your wife into an orgasm because you think that's the way it's got to be. But forcing it's going to hurt it for her. Never force anything. Let your wife grow sexually at a pace that she's comfortable with. And if you're providing safety, she's going to want to be more creative in time. That's because with each new movement or change, she's got a track record with you that's safe. And that's why you never force anything. Secondly, stay pain-free. Stay pain-free. Dr. Ed Wheat is famous for his best-selling book, Intended for Pleasure. This is a book on sexuality and sex. And he was asked, what's the one piece of practical advice that you would give every married man? Practical advice. And without hesitation, he said, always ensure that your wife is pain-free during intercourse. And he said, I would always use a lubricant. Now, anyone who knows much about sexual intercourse knows that when a wife is aroused, that she lubricates in her vagina, and that helps sex, but there can be many occasions when it's not going to be enough. And when it's not enough, there can be irritation or pain. And when that happens, that puts a little doubt in her mind. So the next time when you're approaching intercourse, she's thinking, is this going to hurt again? And so she holds back and keeps from being fully abandoned to you. And every time it becomes irritating to have sex, that's a step backwards in your sexual relationship. So do what's necessary to always stay pain-free. A third thing to create a safe place in bed is this. Know what she likes and what she doesn't. And the best way to do that is just ask her, does this feel good? A little communication during sex is a really healthy thing. Most of the time you don't talk a lot, so if you ask and she can tell you, then you need to give her permission to tell you what she likes and what she doesn't. It's uncomfortable to talk about this, I know, but the best married couples don't guess at sex. If you guess, most guys are going to guess wrong. That's what we do. In lovemaking, if you have a few little directive remarks, that will be the difference between ordinary sex, good sex, and great sex. Number 4, don't rush through sex or over-concentrate on hot spots. In their book, The Gift of Sex, this would be a great resource, guys. In their book, The Gift of Sex, Clifford and Joyce Penner, P-E-N-N-E-R, make this observation. One pattern typically practiced by a husband that causes frustration to the wife occurs when a man finds a place that is arousing to his wife and he becomes attached to it and he stays there. Women that we speak with regularly ask us to tell their husbands 2 things. And they've talked to literally thousands of women on this, okay? They say, first, tell my husband, don't be in such a hurry during sex. Let's enjoy one another. See, the wife's view of sex is relational. Secondly, they said, tell our husbands, don't stick with hot spots until they're worn out. Most wives find stimulation much more arousing when it's varied in terms of intensity and its location. So she may tell you that it feels really good and you may stay too long. The key is to move around, stay creative, and you can know what it is, but take your time and keep on the move. And husbands would like their wives to tell them, that's what I like. We would like that instruction. Next, use words to compliment and reassure. Use words to compliment and reassure your wife. Now remember, she's learning too, okay? So when she does something well, tell her and encourage her. Tell her and encourage her. Now guys, that's the main part of what we wanted to say, how to improve your sex life. But I want to finish with 2 final thoughts, okay? And the first one is this. Men, you are the keeper of your sex life. So I want to say, take responsibility for it, and here's how. First of all, always remember that you get what you give. You get what you give. If your sex life is fading or not doing well, don't blame your wife. Your first move should be to look at yourself and ask the question, am I giving her what she needs? And if you are, then I believe you'll be getting what you need in time. Did you hear that last part? In time. Second, initiate conversation about your sexual needs. Talk about it with each other outside the bedroom. If you'll notice on your Die to Live application project at the end of this session, there's an opportunity to do that this week if you choose. Number 3, keep growing in your sexual understanding and insight. There's some great books on sex. You could start with the one I mentioned earlier, okay? The Gift of Sex. Here it is again, The Gift of Sex by Clifford and Joyce Penner, P-E-N-N-E-R. Number 4, don't sell out to fantasy. Now, guys, everybody listen up. Don't give up the path to a rich sexual relationship with your wife by masturbating in front of a computer screen. Don't you do it. Because when you do it, you trade your sexual energy for a lie, and it will never give you the real thing. Never. The real thing is a rich relationship with your wife. Consider it adultery when you do. It's like adultery. Number 5, seek outside help for sexual roadblocks that you can't work through. Okay, don't just try to ignore them and figure it out. Don't be afraid or too proud to ask for help. Die to live in this, all right, and seek outside help. Now, the final thought is this. Remember, the best sex is not just an act, okay? It is 2 lives in community, and this sex will grow richer and more satisfying with time. So, do you know who's having the best sex in America? Researchers tell us this, that the best sex in America comes out of the home of a married couple who has been faithful and attentive to each other for 10, 15, 25 years or more. Those are the most sexually fulfilled people in America because sex is not just an act. Sex is the celebration of 2 lives. It's not just 2 bodies that come together physically, it's 2 souls. And something mystical really takes place. And that's the secret that our culture doesn't get. This is a union of body and soul. And sex is not just an act. Sex is a celebration of 2 lives committed to one another in a covenant relationship called marriage. Believe it. Well, guys, that's it. See you next week.